Okay, so this is still about section 2.4, this stuff. Um, so this might be a short video. I didn't have that much more to do. Um, I wanted to solve some inequalities. So here I have an inequality. I often call these three-sided inequalities. There's actually three quantities here. This number is less than or equal to this number, which is less than this number. Um, but these aren't anything too scary. You just have to, anything that you do, you have to do in all three places. So I would like to get x by itself, meaning the only place x appears is in the middle. So I'm gonna subtract 3 to get rid of this, and I just have to make sure I do that in all three places. So this gives me -5 less than or equal to -5x less than -2. And then what would I want to do? I would want to divide by -5 to get rid of this. Of course, with inequalities, since I'm dividing by a negative, now I have to reverse the order of everything. So 1 is greater than or equal to x, which is greater than 2/5. And the instructions say write the solution in interval notation. So in interval notation, whoops. So yeah, I was confused because this is sort of written backwards. Usually I write the smaller first. Right. So in interval notation, I would write 2/5, comma 1, like this. It's a parentheses here indicating that 2/5 is not included. That's because this is strictly greater than. This is not greater than or equal to. So x actually cannot be exactly 2/5. That's why this is parentheses. However, x could be exactly 1. That's why this is a closed bracket. So that's what parentheses and brackets mean in interval notation. Okay, what next? We have this one. So let me tell you what's tempting to do, but this is dangerous. It's tempting to just multiply both sides by x plus 2. And why is that dangerous? It's because we're dealing with inequalities, and if you multiply by a negative number, you have to switch the direction of the inequality. The problem is, I don't even know whether x plus 2 is positive or negative. So if I were to multiply by this number, and without knowing whether it's positive or negative, I don't know whether I should switch the direction of the inequality or not. So I'd like to avoid multiplying an inequality by a number that I don't know whether it's positive or negative. So here's what I'm going to do instead. I'm going to find where the top is 0 and where the bottom is 0. So setting the top equal to 0, I solve this. This is easy enough. X would be 1/3. Setting the bottom equal to 0, I would get x equals -2. I am going to draw a number line, and I'm going to mark those and first of all, let me just decide whether these numbers are acceptable values of x or not. Thinking to what the original problem was, if the top is 0, then I'm doing 0 divided by something which gives me 0, and that would be fine because this would be telling me 0 is greater than or equal to 0. So for this situation, I like it when the top is 0. The top is 0 when x is 1/3, so that should be included. I'm going to draw a closed dot on 1/3, because when x is exactly 1/3, this is true. This says 0 is greater than or equal to 0, which is true. When x is -2, however, we have something divided by 0, which is no good ever. So -2 should definitely not be included. I'm drawing an open dot around -2. Okay, so we decided a few things. We decided that -2 is not included and 1/3 is included. Now I still have to decide. There's three sort of like ranges of x that I have to decide. There's the values of x that are smaller than -2, the values of x that are in between -2 and 1/3, and then the values of x that are bigger than 1/3. And the way you can do this is you can just choose examples. So step 2 is to test each interval. So there's this interval, and then there's this interval. And for these, you can just use an example. So this is the interval from -∞ to -2. And I'm just going to choose a value of x that's in there. I'm going to choose a nice value of x. I like round numbers. How about -3? I like, it's an integer. So yeah, you don't think too hard about what value of x. Just choose something in here. And if I plug that in, I get what do I get? -9 minus 1, so -10 divided by -1 is greater than or equal to 0. Actually, that is true, because this would be +10, which is greater than or equal to 0. So I'm going to shade in that interval. So that interval is going to be included in our answer. Now let's do in between. -2 to 1/3. I can choose something in between here. Of course, if you can choose 0, it's always a good idea. 0 is a very nice number, and 0 is between here and here, so let's go for it. If I plug in 0, I get -1/2 is greater than or equal to 0, which is not true. So I'm not going to shade this in. Now let's do the last one. How about x equals 1? If I plug that in, I get 2. So 3 minus 1 is 2/3 greater than or equal to 0. That is true. So this is getting included. Okay, so what's my final answer? My final answer is everything that's shaded. And I want this in interval notation. So this is the interval from -∞ to -2, union with the interval from 1/3 to infinity, and this one includes 1/3, right? So I put my answer like this. And yeah, let me emphasize one more time. -2 is not included. That's why this is round. 1/3 is included. That's why this is a square bracket. And by the way, infinity is never included. Infinity is not an actual number. So if you have infinity or -∞, it's always round parentheses around those. All right. Let's do part C. This is solving an inequality that involves an absolute value. So here's the first thing you should do. I'm going to get rid of the absolute value. It's going to be between 2 and negative 2. You can always do that. If you have the absolute value of something less than something else, you can just take the absolute values off and put this in between this number and negative this number. So 2 and negative 2 for us. And now this is just, it's just like part A, basically. It's just we call it a three-sided inequality. I can do whatever I want as long as I do it to all three places. I'd like to multiply everything by 3, so negative 6 less than x plus 1 less than 6. And then I'll subtract 1 from everything, so negative 7 less than x less than 5. We want this in interval notation, so this is negative 7 to 5, not including either one because these aren't less than or equal to. Okay, so yeah, let me stop this video and make one for the next section.